So you're thinking about buying a house, but you don't know where to start or who to call and what you need to do. So that's where I come in. Let's get into it. What's going on, YouTube? My name's Skyler Edzards, your full-time real estate agent here in the Kansas City metro area, aka the City of Fountains. Before we dive into today's video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button for me so we stay connected for all of your real estate needs. In today's video, we're going to be going over the home buying process and what it looks like working with a true professional. Let's get into it. Let's be honest, buying a home is most likely going to be your biggest financial investment that you will ever make. So it is crucial to make sure that you are working with a true professional and someone that is looking out for your best interest throughout this process. So within the buying process, what is the very first step? The very first step in your home buying process is going to be meeting with myself, and we're going to do a buyer's consultation. So what is a buyer's consultation? The buyer's consultation. Think of it just like you would any other interview where me and you, we're going to meet and we're going to make sure that we're a great fit, and I'm going to be showing you all the amazing things that I'm going to do for you to earn your business. So, what are we going to talk about at this meeting? At this meeting, we're going to be going over several things. First, we're going to go ahead and set expectations, and I'm going to let you know what's going on in the market so you, as my buyer, have a little bit better knowledge on what exactly we're going to need to do in order to accomplish your goals. Next is going to be possibly talking about selling your place in order for us to buy. Since if we do need to sell, that's going to be a whole lot different process than if we were just buying our first house or moving from a rental or from your parents' house. So that's going to look a little bit different. If we don't have a house to sell, next is going to be talking about your search criteria and all of those little important details on what exactly you're looking for so I can go out and find it. Then we're going to talk about the home buying process from the very first step of us having our buyer's consultation all the way down to the closing table where I'm going to be handing you some keys to your next place. Then, to finish up this meeting, any and all questions that you might have as a buyer. I'm sure, if this is your first time buying, there's going to be plenty of questions that come along with this process. And let me be the first person to tell you, there are no silly or stupid questions when it comes to your process. So please do not hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions throughout this process or even post sale. I'm just here to help you. Then that kind of gets us into step two, finances. So, how are we going to pay for this place? And how much is it going to cost to get us to the closing table? I'm sure this is probably an important question for you. Step number two is all about finances and making sure that we have our ducks in a row before we ever get out there and start looking at any house. If we're paying in cash, we're going to go ahead and reach out to your bank and make sure that we have a proof of funds letter. This letter just basically states that whatever the purchase price that we're looking at, you have those funds already in your bank account and we are good to go. Now, if you're like most buyers, we're probably going to be getting a loan. And if you don't know where to start, I do have a list of recommended lenders that have worked with my past clients, and my past clients have just enjoyed working with them and have loved the results. So go ahead and drop a comment, get pre approved if you are looking for any recommendations for lenders. Once we have either a proof of funds letter or a pre-approval letter, this is going to be the golden ticket that we need before we go see any house. Because right now, houses are still selling relatively quickly. And the last thing that I want to do is bring you into your dream house and we love it. We're ready to make an offer. And I go ahead and call the listing agent. Let's say it's a weekend and they tell me, yep, I've got a couple offers. We're planning on reviewing tonight at 5. Most of my lenders might not be able to get us a pre-approval letter over the weekend. And that might be a house that we just miss out on. Or some sellers are going to require us to present this letter before we even book an appointment. So to avoid any frustrations, we want to make sure that you have that proof of funds letter or pre-approval letter before we get out there and start shopping. Once you have my list of recommended lenders and we've called a couple different lenders, submitted some applications, we should have an answer on whether or not we're good to go. This will also give us a max purchase price and your loan type. These are definitely important details that I need to know since some of these houses that we're going to see on the market are only going to be selling cash or conventional. So if we're getting an FHA loan or maybe a VA loan, I need to know that. So I'm not taking you to any house that just simply won't work for our situation. Then, along with the pre-approval letter, we're going to make sure that we are staying within your budget because you're probably going to get a pre-approval letter that is going to be associated with maybe a monthly payment that might be a little bit too much for you. So we're going to make sure that you talk with your lender, go over these numbers, and it's a purchase price that you feel comfortable with that monthly payment. So, what other fees are going to be associated with your purchase? First is going to be your earnest money deposit. This is going to be your good faith money showing to the seller that you have skin in the game. Could be as much as 1% of the purchase price. Next is going to be inspections. As your buyer's agent, I always recommend inspections, so we're definitely accounting for that. Next, if we're getting a loan, is going to be your appraisal, which is your lender sending an appraiser out there to make sure that the property is worth whatever we're under contract at. Then to finish things up is going to be your closing costs, admin fee, down payment, and if we are looking at a for sale by owner or maybe a seller that refuses to pay commissions, but you still want my representation, then commissions is going to be the last piece that we're going to have to worry about. Now, that's kind of uncommon, so we shouldn't have to worry about commissions, but just making sure you're aware. Now we get to the fun part, looking at houses. There's a few things that I want to make sure that you are aware of before we do that. First is going to be sellers. They may be watching us or listening in on our conversations. So whenever we're out showing any property, we're going to make sure any little secrets or things that we need to keep between just me and you, we kind of make sure not to do that at the house, just since security systems are getting way more advanced and we might not even see the camera, but it's going to see us. Then any appointment that you want to make for a showing, it's just going to be a simple text message to me. Hey Skyler, we saw 123 Main Street. Can we go ahead and book an appointment for 3 o'clock on Saturday? Easy, perfect. We'll go ahead, book those appointments for you. We'll meet at the house, take a look, see if it's something that is appealing to us and checks all of our boxes. Go over the seller's disclosure and any other information that I have about the property until we find the one that you're ready to make an offer on. For any open houses or maybe a new construction community that you would like to stop at the model house, just make sure you let me know what the address is so I can let the agent know that you guys are headed out that way. And if I can make it, I would love to accompany you on any of those visits, just so I can answer any and all of your questions, help you kind of point out some things that you want to make sure that you're thinking about during those showings, and be the agent that represents you. Step number 4, we've found the house and you're ready to make your offer. So what do we do before we make your offer? So before we go shooting from the hip and make an offer just based off of emotion, there are 3 data points that I want to make sure to pull for you before we submit our offer. First is going to be calling the listing agent. I know that sounds very obvious, but this is probably the most important step because we're confirming whether or not they have any offers at the moment, or maybe an offer deadline that they're planning on reviewing those offers, details about those offers. Technically, the listing agent might not be able to share all those details with me, but I'm still gonna ask. Then maybe a specific term or close dates that maybe the seller's looking for, and just any other details, because that's gonna help you. Next is gonna be comps. Comps are comparable sales that have happened within the last 6 months and are like the subject property that we are about to make an offer on. So we can look at the past sales and what other buyers have been paying and what those houses look like. So then we can determine whether or not the list price is, too high, they're spot on, or maybe they're too low. And now we're anticipating multiple offers. So that kind of coincides with what we're going to be offering. And lastly is going to be the sales price versus list price analysis. And this is going to give us a percentage of what other buyers have been paying for these homes in this area. So if it's 105% is the most recent data for this area, then we know past buyers have been paying 5% above list price. And that percentage could be a good tool for us as a buyer in case there's not enough comps out there to support the subject property. Once we've gathered all of this information and you've had time to review, we're going to set up a phone call to go over what you want to offer. So after reviewing all of the information and you're ready to submit your offer, you're going to go ahead and give me a call and you're going to tell me what you're thinking. So purchase price, additional terms, close dates, you name it. Then what I'm going to do as your buyer's agent is give you some suggestions on maybe anything else that we should include in our offer. And at the end of the day, these are just suggestions. And we are only going to write an offer that you feel comfortable in writing. So after that phone call, I'm going to give you a little bit of time to think of the suggestions that I gave you. And after you've thought of those suggestions, and if it's something that we don't want to include in our offer, we write that offer that you wanted to write. Step 5, offer accepted. Woohoo! We can kind of celebrate a little bit after getting your offer accepted. That is definitely a huge milestone in our home buying process, but we still have a few steps before we get to the closing table. Next, we're going to worry about your earnest money deposit and getting that turned in with the seller's title company, scheduling your inspections, since typically we only have 10 days after that accepted contract to get your inspections scheduled. So that leads into our next step, step 6, inspections. As your buyer's agent, I always recommend inspections, just since whenever we're out there showing that property, you and I can only see so much, and that's not going to be the whole picture or what's going on at this property. So we're going to make sure that we bring a professional in to take a look and see if there's anything else that we need to account for. And how our offer is written is kind of how inspections are going to go. We've got a couple different options. If we were not buying as is, then we will have the opportunity to inspect that property and come up with a list of items that we felt needed repair, or maybe we want to take a little bit off the purchase price. Basically, we'll be able to negotiate with that seller based off your inspections. Now, if we're in its present condition, box 1 or 3 or 2, this deserves another video. Our equation kind of goes a little bit different, where now it's after the inspections, knowing all that we know now, do we want to move forward? So this leads into the next step, getting insurance, the appraisal, and final approval. The appraisal is where your lender is going to send an appraiser out to the property and ensure that the property is worth what we're under contract for. This appraisal can go 3 different ways or 3 different scenarios. What we're hoping for is the appraised value to be higher than the purchase price. This won't change anything on your purchase price. It just means that now you're walking into some instant equity on whatever that difference may be. The next best scenario that we're looking for is that the appraised value is equal to the purchase price. This means we're good to go, we don't need to do anything else, and we're moving forward. What we're not looking for is the appraised value to be lower than the purchase price. If it's lower than the purchase price, then this opens up a 5-day renegotiation period where me, as your buyer's agent, am going to be arguing with the sellers, getting them to lower their price. On the flip side, the sellers are going to be arguing with me, trying to get us to come up with that cash to make up that difference. Now, most of the time, appraisals do get worked out, even if they do come in a little bit lower than the purchase price, but it definitely just depends on how low they come in. A seller might not be in a position to accept an offer or get to the closing table at that lower appraised value. In that case, we might be falling apart, but we're hoping that that's not the case. Knock on wood, most of my appraisals, we have not had to worry about that at all. Once we get through the appraisal, we only have a few more steps before we get to the closing table, which is going to be your underwriting, final loan approval and clear to close, final walkthrough, and scheduling closing. Once we get the appraisal all figured out, we only have a few more steps before we get to the closing table. And those are going to be your underwriter reaching out and confirming that none of the details that you guys put on your application have changed since we've been under contract. So employment, hours worked, wages, credits, making sure that we got the cash to close, etc. Once they've done their final underwriting, we're going to go ahead and get a clear to close from your lender. And this is going to release the final statements from title. And once we have the final statements, now we know exactly what dollar amount we need to bring to the closing table. Once we have that clear to close, we're also going to go ahead and schedule your final walkthrough. And at the final walkthrough, we're just confirming that everything that was supposed to be a part of this sale is still at the property. The property is still the same, so no new damage from once we went under contract, and also ensuring that the house is either empty or it looks like the sellers are going to be able to move out within the allotted time before we take possession. After the final walkthrough, we've got our closing to attend. Our closing, I'm going to make sure to schedule it early that morning. And the only reason why we're going to make sure that we schedule it earlier in the morning is just to ensure that your sale funds that day. Because if it doesn't fund, it could be a situation where we need to meet the following day for me to be able to give you keys. And I know after we went through all of this hard work, the last thing that you want is a anticlimactic closing day where you don't walk away with some keys. So once we're done signing all of those papers to get us all closed up, we've only got a few more things. We're gonna snap a couple funny photos with my fake mustaches. I'm sure you've noticed the mustache is a part of my logo. Then once we're done with photos, I've got a little gift for thanking you guys for entrusting me to be your buyer's agent throughout this process. And then our relationship basically just kind of gets started after that. Since after closing, I'm still gonna be here for any of your real estate needs. So if it's vendors, contractors, or maybe you've got a problem and you need some help problem solving, I'm still your guy. Just because we've closed on the sale does not end this relationship. I hope this kind of gives you a little bit better idea of what the whole home buying process looks like. And I'm sure after I just word vomited at you, you're gonna have tons and tons of questions. If that's the case, make sure to drop some comments below with those questions and I'll start responding. Or for a quicker way to get a response, go ahead and reach out to me directly. Here's a couple ways that you can get a hold of me. And before you guys get out of here today, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button for me so we stay connected for all of your real estate needs here in the Kansas City metro area. So with that being said, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to another one of my videos, and I can't wait to connect. I'll see you guys on the next one.